Hey friends, I appreciate every like and share for my videos, so if you will, I'll probably give you a present in the mail in a few days. Maybe. But you'll have my love, so there's that. Like, share, and subscribe for weekly videos since I'm back uploading weekly after a very, very long time. I've been playing games since the brick was created back in the day, which is the Nintendo Game Boy brick, and my older cousin owned one. For years, I really never thought that I'd stop playing games, as I would spend hours on my consoles from my first Nintendo 64 all the way to my college days with my PlayStation 3. Video games, like for others, weren't necessarily my way out of hardships like some. However, they were a way to build my creativity. As a kid that drew often and made crappy comics with printer paper, they gave me a look into character design, story progression, and more. I was always a kid that loved creating, and I still am to this very day. But somewhere in recent years, the part of inspiration that came from gaming has definitely lost its appeal, and even playing them somehow has become like a chore instead of a leisure or method of entertainment. I always think to myself, is it because I'm older? Is it just because I've been dealing with the aspects of adulthood and I just don't have time? Have I grown out of them? I can end it there, but I still do play games ever so often, so the prior wouldn't be true. If that were the case, I wouldn't be playing them at all anymore. It had gotten to the point where I even once had a Twitch channel and legitimately stopped for a few reasons. One, playing games felt like a chore. Two, I couldn't sit still playing for as long as you really have to when streaming. I'm not the kind of person to isolate myself in the chair for that long. Three, over time, I just realized I don't enjoy people watching me play games. Even when I would get a lot of watchers, I didn't feel accomplished. I felt worried, nervous, and uneasy. This is when I realized streaming, at least streaming video games, wasn't for me. Somewhere near the lines where gaming had took a turn into mainstream popularity is where it started to get harder to keep interest, and before you ridicule me, hear me out. It's not the case that it hit mainstream popularity, but the ramifications of it. There are about 3 points and possibly more that I can read into as to why my love for video games has diminished over the course of just a few years. Even just about 5 years ago, I was excited to hear about the next releases of larger developers such as Blizzard, Bethesda, or even Capcom, as a fighting gameplay, with Street Fighter. But now, my interest in E3 is nearly non-existent. I can go weeks or even months without watching new trailers. I first noticed that over time, my unenjoyment from playing games came from the constantly misuse of, dare I say, microtransactions. The definition of microtransactions is described as a business model where the users can purchase virtual goods with micropayments. Microtransactions are often used in free-to-play games to provide a revenue source for the developers. From my research, this is 100% not accurate. I can get into detail as to why this is a falsehood, and why the additional hundreds of dollars building from microtransactions is not necessarily for developer gratuity. But that's an entire different video in itself. Microtransactions are affecting gameplay more than one would think. By leaving large percentages of full titles to DLC and passes, most normal aspects of games are built off microtransactions. Guns and shooters, cars and racers such as Forza, and fighters such as Street Fighter, microtransactions have literally infested the gaming industry in the most negative of ways. Sure, there have always been DLC and early access content in games, even with 6th generation gaming and prior. Developers would charge a little more for early access and even early DLC. If the gamer was interested in this option, and mind you, it wasn't necessary for the game, but a simple extra price or prize upon purchasing the game. These days, games like Destiny aren't even finished, as the game's actual ending is downloadable content that you have to purchase. In competitive games, you have loot boxes upon loot boxes, which is 100% gambling. The funny thing about loot boxes is that they spit out the same renditions of items and skins over and over again, and they aren't even rare. In the new world of microtransactions, skill and skill is based by chance, which can mean more than just that. The fact that pay to win exists these days are a sign of dark days in the gaming industry, when skill is no longer involved, that the concept of fun and competition dies. The day you spend grinding to receive in-game currency from playtime or completing a challenge for unlockable skins, armor, characters, and items are seemingly spiraling further and further away. I was luckily and grateful enough to have actively played games at the time where unlockables were normal. Microtransactions have gotten so far out of hand, government regulations have gotten involved in regulating this high-end scam. If you don't know what I mean, search the entire Star Wars Battlefront 2 debacle that occurred a few years ago and see how much of an actual dumpster fire EA had gotten themselves into. Microtransactions are indeed a monetization tactic, feeding off of consumerism, what I believe to be consumerism. At a point in time, I noticed how much I would pay full price or near full price for a game, and then realize how much content that I would actually access because I had to buy it. My second point going into this is the quality of gaming in comparison to what it used to be. There are a couple of reasons as to why I believe game development has gotten worse in recent years, and marketing is probably the biggest culprit and factor. Rushing games in development not to miss release dates, and trying too hard to stay according to marketing campaigns. The entire factor of rushing games without error now seems unnecessary, when features such as patches and updates are now an option for game devs. Some of the highest rated games ever released, such as Metal Gear Solid 2, Final Fantasy X, were all released in early 2000s. This time period is where games peaked in quality, because there was no way to fix the games upon release. There was no marketing and promotional pressure, and there was no massive following in the titles online with YouTube and online sources. So game devs had to complete titles to the T, or that title will be listed as a horrible rated game. These days, the thought process of updates and patches have overshadowed quality. It has come to the point of lying to consumers and over-exaggerating entire games and gameplay, giving false promises about something that's not even possible. I'm sure most is aware that Anthem has been criticized to the highest tier of bad press. Example being, the Anthem reveal trailer was apparently never meant to mirror actual gameplay, but the trailer was meant as a pitch to executives for approval, to attempt development, or something of that nature. The fact that this trailer even made to viewership, to consumers, should have never happened. I also give examples of the most controversial, No Man's Sky, but that's already known by everyone is a complete dumpster fire. Rushing games to release has caused the gaming industry to be called out for their originality, which has been a huge concern in games as of late. There has been a constant copy and paste mentality. Several copies of survivals have spawned battle royales and shooters from the successes of games like H1Z1, Fortnite, and COD for the purpose of cash grabs. If you take a look on Steam, you'll probably be able to see for yourself how many carbon copies of successful games have spawned over recent years. And even with popular titles such as the COD franchise, Infinity Ward has constantly copied and pasted everything from one game to another, and slapping a new subtitle on the new cover art, and people have realized this once the quality of the game started to diminish. This is literally recycling games and calling them new. Most developers, in my opinion, seem to use the formats, the same tactics, and the same methods enabled to sell a title. It is a dark time when the higher tier publishers such as Bethesda Softworks and Blizzard is now under fire for their quality. I probably shouldn't speak of this, but I most recently had a conversation with a friend that did game testing for Fallout 76. There are several bugs and errors in the game that he pointed out. Their responses was apparently not to worry about it, stating that it's not a big issue. Did they figure out how to fix this upon a patch later? Perhaps. However, this mentality definitely came back to bite them along with the several other inconsistencies in the game. Wrapping this up, these are strictly why I personally don't play games as much as I do anymore. Backed up with facts as to why I feel that I have gotten led to this viewing. You may think differently, you may have still played games as much as you always have, whether you're 20, 30, or 40. With that coming to mind, I also feel like adulting has played a small role in my time in games, but this wouldn't affect my excitement in playing them, as to why I don't use this point. However, I'd like to point out the facts that I have used have always been a constant controversial issue within the gaming industry that hasn't affected only me but a large percentage of consumers. With the amount of titles being released these days due to larger budgets, consumers are looking for more worthwhile games, and because that percentage is so large, the quality is scarce. Within the coming years, the industry will of course change for better or worse. In my thoughts, if gaming continues to go down the path that it is currently going down as far as the factual points here, I would truly believe we will be facing a second video game crash. This could only be avoided upon the executives and publishers focus on the quality of what actual consumers want and what they look for. Lastly, I'd like to say thank you for the support for the channel. If you don't mind, and if you enjoyed the video, I would greatly appreciate you for liking and sharing, as it would be a huge favor. However, watching this far has already been a huge favor in itself. Follow me on Instagram and Twitter as I post thoughts, memes, and post on life, games, music, raves, festivals, and updates for music, DJing, and producing. Links are in the description below. Subscribe for more weekly uploads, and with that being said, thanks again. I'll see you guys soon.